The take of two different CEOs in the gaming community. One says Stadia overpromised. The other said that games are doing well. Who to believe? Let's get into it.
Stay sick cause I follow my gut. They say I was pushing my luck. I'ma push me a matte all black truck. Oh, I'm not sorry.
What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? It's your boy MM2K back again with another episode of the Stadia Dosage. Do me a huge favor, y'all. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, rock those bells for notifications, please. So you know when your boy's dropping these doses. I appreciate all of y'all straight up, because I'm not too proud to ask. And this may be the only video that I do over the next several days. I know you guys are used to me pumping them out left and right. But there's some things I got to work on behind the scenes to give you guys better content. Everybody else is doing spring cleaning, and it's time that I do the same. So we're looking on making some enhancements to the various channels that I contribute to, more notably the Discord and the websites that I also contribute to, pntsnetwork.com and, of course, broadbandbullies.com. All right, so with all that out of the way, this is something I kind of talked about over the weekend as I gave a friendly scolding to our good friend Paul Tassi over at Forbes. Paul has a tendency of writing articles, being very siloed and narrow-minded in his approach. Someone that writes for a publication like Forbes, you would think would have like a broader perspective on things, even though we ain't got to necessarily agree with their point of view, but you would think they would do more research, they would dig a little bit more. Paul, for all intents and purposes, and again, I don't think he's a bad guy, just he lacks that in his stories. It was evident in this story, and then something peculiar he said about Xbox Lockhart that you go see for yourself, all right? But I did a video on this past weekend addressing Paul Tassi. Now I want to do a video specifically for you guys, right? So what is this that I'm talking about? Okay, the story is that on May 31st, GameSpot put up an article, and I'll show it to you in a little bit. GameSpot put up an article where Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick says the promise of Stadia was an expanded market, but it fell short of the ambition, okay? And that got a reaction from the Stadia community, and it did get a reaction from me, all right? Now, again, to not seem rabid, I think it's very important for us not to just grab our pitchforks and go after everything that Strauss is alluding to. I think there are some factual takeaways. It's just the overall tone and the main thesis of what he had to say, which is problematic and false and basically just a farce. Now, what is all that? Well, let's get into it. So here's the article, and here's what he says. It says, he says in quote, "Streaming technology is upon us. The launch of Stadia has been slow. I think there was some over-promising on what the technology could deliver and some consumer disappointment as well." Okay. So, and then he goes on further to say that they just basically overpromised in the article. And there's different things where he's alluding to, hey, you know what? It doesn't sound like he's doubling down on doing anything for Stadia. It's like he's very pessimistic. We'll make further investments where it makes sense and all that other stuff. And I'm like, damn. Well, there goes the hopes of my BioShock collection coming to Stadia. You know what I'm saying? But I want to take what he's saying and put it into its appropriate buckets. And if those of you that listen to my scolding of Paul, you'll understand what I'm saying by put it in its appropriate buckets. I want to take and put in bucket one the fact that Stadia's launch has been slow, hinting at the fact that it underperformed. That, my friends, for all intents and purposes, is factual. Look, that's why I said don't grab your pitchforks just yet. we gotta understand and we gotta believe that the rhetoric, let me do it this way. The game library, which was very limited, and it was filled with games that we've played elsewhere. The miscommunication, which I'm not saying they lied to anybody. They didn't lie to anybody. We went over this time and time again. It was just bad, horrible communication. Prime example of that is the Phil Harrison Trezorector tweet when Trezorector, big staple within the Stadia community, was trying to get clarification on would all games be 4K 60, and Phil Harrison hit him with this technical bibble babble, which explained that it wouldn't be, but it didn't put it in layman's terms for the average gamer. So we had stuff like that. But more notably, there was no look. There's no doubt you can't dismiss the fact that the rhetoric, the wrong yays and the Memecast boys and all those people out there that were hating on Stadia 24/7. Stay away from Stadia. It explodes and it shoots lava in your face and it kidnaps babies. You know, with all that rhetoric that's out there and people using their inherent human instinct to say, I don't want to be duped. I don't want to be duped. So if all these big names with the blue check marks next to them are saying this, they must all be telling the truth, right? Wrong. But little did the public know. So I'm not going to get into all that. I just want to say that with those three factors alone, you got to understand that this thing underperformed. All three of those things hitting at the same time. I say reasonably, I think that they were looking at reasonable console numbers at launch, where at a successful launch, a console might get anywhere between 8 to 10 million. And I think at launch, they were probably looking at 2 to 5 million at launch. And at launch, I don't think they got that. I think they got like maybe a couple 100,000. All right. And I think at the point now that they went live and they went public, so to speak, I think they're probably at 2 million. And I think they'll be lucky to hit 5 million at the end of the year, unless there's some big crazy thing that they're going to release at the end of the year with Stadia Gen 2.0 or something like that, that's going to shake the world. But beyond something like that, I think they'll be lucky to hit 5 million. Now, future years, when they really get hit the ground and running, I think they're going to do a lot better. But this first year, these first 12 months, you know, I'm surmising around 5 million. So to that point, Strauss, I have no arguments. But here's the problem. And trying to analyze it is where he does the big faux pas. He says, I think there was some overpromising on the technology they could deliver and some consumer disappointment as a result. Now, that's just a bunch of bullpucky. Why is it a bunch of bullpucky? Because what he's trying to do, because he's talking to other investors, is he's trying to admonish himself in his decision making as the CEO from overshooting the moon on what they expected to get from Stadia. There was no reason to believe that you were going to get any lucrative pushback or revenue stream of the likes or any of that from Stadia, particularly at launch. I remember people talking prior to launch, before the horrible AMA and all that other stuff, just talking about, hey, you're doing this for the culture. And it's good to see that companies like Take-Two and Bethesda and Ubisoft, more notably, are doing this because they're trying to help push streaming along. So at some point in time, it can become a lucrative venture. But they understood that what they're contributing now is an upfront investment. That's why they just gave us a bunch of old games that they've already sold a kabillion on elsewhere that people likely already got their hands on. But beyond that, there was no reason to believe that this would be a great return so early on. Why not? The hard entry to get in. And I steal that word from our good friends at StadiaCast. Big ups to them. I'm gonna leave a link to their show where they specifically talk about this. But the hard entry to get into Stadia, it was very limited. You had to get the Founders Edition. You had to get the Premier Edition, or you had to get a buddy pass. It wasn't open retail. As Lloyd says from Stadia Case, you couldn't just walk into a Best Buy and say, give me a Stadia. You can't do that now. So the entry point was very limited, and it was like that on purpose from Stadia. Then there was limited devices that even if you were just gonna play online, that you could play online with. Yes, you could play on the PC, but for people that primarily wanted Stadia on the phone, they couldn't get it on the phone. There's a lot of people that said, you know what? I want to try this 2-month trial of Stadia with my buddy pass, but I'm not going to activate it yet until it comes to my phone. And at the time of this recording, they're talking about releasing to I can't, the term loses me now, but uncertified devices, meaning devices that they didn't fully vet and say, okay, with 100% certainty, this is gonna work. They're talking about that now, but at launch, no, there was only like a handful of devices you could play on. Then again, I spoke to the old games. A lot of the vast majority of the content, even though it was great content, it's stuff that people played elsewhere. People were not willing to double dip at mass for the stuff they played elsewhere, especially when the messaging was muddled as far as why would I want to get it here. People didn't understand the 60 frames per second and how smooth stuff played. They were lied to and told that there was too much lag across the board. And also, there was no reasonable belief, you know what I'm saying, because they had no breakout exclusive. Now, in contrast of sitting there this late in the game, when all this was evident but prior to launch, Take-Two CEO could have been out there on the front lines like somebody else, speaking highly of the platform. That could have done it wonders. Who is that somebody else? Our homeboy Yves Guillemot. Yves Guillemot's been all over the scene talking positive on Stadia because they got products there. That's what a good CEO does. He doesn't just cry like a little baby and then try to blame somebody else for their stupid shooting over the moon. What an idiotic thing to do. But Yves, during a financial call, a fiscal year earnings call where if you lie, you die. Nobody lies on earnings calls. You get yourself in so much trouble, you can get yourself in trouble with the SEC. So here's what Yves Guillemot said there during this investment call. Not only did he praise Stadia because it's the best place to develop games across the board because of his cloud infrastructure, even for other platforms. He said, because they say Ubisoft provided a quick update on Stadia's performance and how the studio's taking advantage of the cloud development amid COVID-19 and work from home procedures. Now, he said there's more and more games coming to the Google platform. And more interesting, he revealed how Ubisoft is leveraging Stadia's cloud for development because it gives a chance to work for home for people to review some of their games. Now, that's just the tip of the iceberg. This is what he said during the investor call that really puts into doubt what Strauss said. He said more and more games now are available on Stadia, which are doing well. We're also using a lot of Stadia's possibilities to do development because it gives a chance to work from home for people to review some of their games, so it's something interesting. That which is doing well is talking about the financial returns of the game. During the investor call, doing well during an investor call is talking about the financial growth of the game. He didn't say doing fantastic, doing expeditiously, doing well. They're doing well, they're doing okay. Why? Because he didn't overshoot the moon. And this is an individual that's working hand in hand with Stadia. So if there was anybody that had put more money on the wood, that had more to lose, that really put more of an upfront investment, it's Yves and Ubisoft. Take-Two just ported some games. And Yves also tells you, go look it up. Yves tells you that porting games to Stadia is not expensive. So all they did at Take-Two is just port a couple of games. They don't have skin in the game like Ubisoft does, and Ubisoft had reasonable expectations from the beginning. So with all that said, man, oh man, oh man, I mean, like, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, like I've said in the previous video, the business acumen of our buddy Strauss Zelnick. It really makes you wonder. Is this him crying and whining to not investors, but to other business people, because they're probably looking at, why did you overshoot the moon? Why did you give some projection somewhere? Because Yves didn't do that. And Yves said what he said during an investor call. So I'm willing to believe Yves more than I am to somebody that really makes no sense. He started off making a little bit of sense, but then finished it off making no sense whatsoever. And lastly, we got a bunch of journalists who want to use this. I already addressed Paul Tassi. There's a couple of more that wrote some articles. And look, here's the thing, y'all. As far as any article that's written on this subject matter, I'm not going to address it past this. This is going to be the video to address it pretty much. But anybody that just regurgitates this, they're just looking at the first shiny thing that they can latch onto to create some Stadia hate. Like I said, we already seen examples from the homie Paul Tassi, and his article was just riddled with misinformation. You know what I'm saying? So that tells volumes of what you should believe and who to believe it from. But anyone who does not contrast the hard entry, the limited devices, the old games, and all this other stuff, and question why Strauss would even believe that there would be some grand return on investment, and ask what specifically, technology-wise, did they overpromise on. Any article that does not do that or does not put them to test and ask those questions is just a farce. And they're just trying to contribute to get that good old Stadia hate clickbait. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I want people to be informed, I want people to be in the know, and I want you to just be worried of said articles. And with that said, that's it from your boy MM2K. Let me know what you think about what I had to say in the comment section below, because like I always say, who cares what I think? But if you did like what I had to say, check out the links below to follow me. Those links will lead you to the Broadband Bullies, PNTS Network, Hard Knock Digital Culture, and yes, here the Stadia Dosage. And with all that said, you guys have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.